Buying a Jeep, you are in for an adventure. But if you're not careful, this adventure could turn into a costly nightmare. In this video, we're breaking down everything you need to know, where to look, what to avoid, and how to make sure that you're getting a Jeep that's ready to hit the trail without breaking the bank. My name is Neil with SFJ4x4.com. There's a ton of people watching these videos and most of you aren't subscribed. So do that now, do that thing, right? Like and click and ring bells and push notifications. And maybe while you're at it, share this with a friend or into your local Jeep group. See what they have to say about things. There's gonna be some stuff in here that you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. There's gonna be some stuff that kind of feels a little cringy. And then there might be some stuff that you downright disagree with. We want to hear about that. We read and respond to nearly all the comments left on our videos. So, leave something down below. Global markets of buying and selling have basically been on all-time highs in, about the past 2 to 5 years. We thought there might be a bubble burst of vehicle pricing and financing. Realistically, the pandemic kind of broke that for us as an industry. Basically, overnight, it wiped it away. While vehicle pricing continued to skyrocket for a few years following, we never actually saw the automotive industry bubble burst that many people were predicting in 2018, 19, and the earliest months of 2020. Realistically, if you know me, I'm the guy where a vehicle goes to die. I will drive that thing until it has no more life to give, no more usable parts on it. And at that point in time, it either ends up getting recycled or the very little bit of life that are left in those parts get pulled off and put into another project. So I'm in a particularly unique perspective and position to share with you how I look at the markets and buying and selling. In fact, there's a lot of people who turn to us professionally, SFJ4x4.com, and myself personally for buying and selling consultations or opinion. And you could be one of those people if you found a number of Jeeps that you're trying to decide between. You can actually do a remote consultation, typically with me, and I'll kind of walk you through what you should be looking for. But realistically, I'm in a unique position because I'm never out here trying to buy and sell a bunch of vehicles from auction or buy them from customers or resell them to people. I have a unique way of looking at the market, which arguably can help a lot of people. And hopefully this video helps you in that process. So if it's not something that you're regularly exposed to, it's like anything in life. If this is your first or second time looking at a for sale ad, you might miss one or two things. What I'm always looking for are additional stickers on the vehicle. If the tires appear to be worn similarly, or if it's a Jeep specifically, if it's meant to have 5 tires, are 4 of them one brand and the 5th and the spare a different one or an older one? Is the wheel even match, or is there a wheel cover on there and so you might not know? We're looking for modifications that maybe a previous owner has put on the vehicle and now it's been passed through, or if it's an independent party selling a product, if they are representing the vehicle accurately or if there is some misrepresentation in the process. Now, I'm always trying to choose to be a little more optimistic, and so I try to give people the benefit of the doubt and kind of say they don't know what they don't know until they know it. That's when I'm ready to cast a couple stones. So we're looking for little clues of identification. And honestly, we've made a couple really successful Jeep specific videos in the process to help people identify a number of vintage and even some newer Jeeps, quirks and characteristics that you should be looking for when you're in the market for one of those vehicles. As you comb these websites, you should be looking at, do I have a bunch of pictures? What stories do those pictures tell? What kind of care and condition can I discern from how the listing was written and how the pictures were taken. Now, if you're dealing with some form of dealership or a private party through Facebook Marketplace, potentially Craigslist or some other venue, and you would like additional pictures or resources supporting some of the claims within the listing, how responsive that individual is to your needs is likely an identifier for how badly they want to sell the vehicle and how much care or consideration was put into the sale of the vehicle. I always find it humorous that people are like, well, I don't have to sell. Okay, so why did you put the listing up? Well, you put the listing up because money talks, and I can appreciate that. But realistically, I like to purchase from somebody who is full commit on the sale of their vehicle. Likely, you're going to get a better price for the vehicle, and additionally, you're likely to get a better quality vehicle in the end because they're more willing to accurately represent it and they want to move this vehicle along. They've committed to the sale of it, and so therefore it benefits you, the consumer. Buying online is about finding the right place, whether it be Carvana or Vroom or Facebook Marketplace. You're going to want to vet that vehicle as best you can in kind of this remote environment. And that remote environment is your living room, from the comfort of your bed, whatever it is. You're going to turn to professional resources, maybe like we offer with our consultation service, or join some type of social forum where people are talking about these vehicles. That way you can really get a good feel for some of the quirks and little peculiarities that this particular model or make has associated with it. Don't get me wrong, the internet has given entirely too many people a voice to air their grievances, founded or unfounded. So take with a grain of salt people's opinion in the process, and instead try to kind of create an overall or a bird's eye view of what you believe the general maintenance and operation of that vehicle is going to be. As a word to the wise, if you are doing a Facebook Marketplace or a Craigslist, ensure that if you're going to do any type of meetups, that you do them in a nice public place, or that you have appropriately communicated to your friends and family where and who and how you're going to meet about this vehicle. Additionally, I can't say this enough, be very guarded on your financial transactions. Be very conscientious about putting down deposits, ensure that they are refundable or non-refundable, and absolutely, when dealing with online transactions, handle with care your finances and your expectations. If it seems to be too good to be true, or if there is a prince in Abu Dhabi who just needs you to hold on to his vehicle for a few days, I think you better pass. Online auctions are kind of a cool place to purchase vehicles, but understand that when a vehicle goes to auction, that is because it is not sellable under traditional means. Now, this is a generalization and is not meant to fit every single situation, but something to consider is that if a vehicle would sell well in a private party or on a dealership lot, then the likelihood is that's where it's going to sell first and foremost. Buying at an online auction is oftentimes about liquidation, fast cash, or limited liability on the seller's behalf. Now, I understand you might have gotten a great deal before, or back when eBay was a powerhouse and you could buy something on an online auction. It's a viable opportunity to purchase. I get it. It's vetted. It's been around long enough. But understand that those three first principles that I mentioned are in fact the reason why it's primarily going to auction versus a traditional sales path. Finally, for our collector customers, there are specialty auctions where typically the vehicle is actually physically represented somewhere. Now, on the top end of that spectrum, it's going to be your Meekums, your Barrett Jacksons, and your localized premium auto auctions, some type of local market auction house. Typically speaking, these are more collector driven, more niche market. There's a time and a place for everything, I believe. And so that's okay. But typically speaking, auction is not your best place to buy a vehicle. Now, sometimes it is a great way to score some quick cash as a seller, but buyer beware and do your homework and vet that vehicle thoroughly before you put your bid on the auction block. Be conscientious of your budget, keep it firm, and don't let the allure of the vehicle get in the way of the cap of your bank account. If you are buying online, whether it be at an auction or some type of online seller, are there going to be delivery fees? Are there any type of handling? Are there auction fees or some type of title transfer fee that is going to be above and beyond the purchase price that you're currently looking at? Sometimes that online sales pitch can be a little too good to be true, and you might have to come back to reality and make sure that you're insulating yourself in the best way possible as a consumer. There are going to be a number of reputable online sales sources that offer a 10 or 30-day trial with the vehicle. There are some companies that offer some form of extended warranty. And I'm not talking about the extended warranty we all joke about with the phone calls in the middle of the night. I'm saying they offer you some type of guarantee on the sale of the vehicle that you're going to be satisfied. Now, the dealership market has responded with something they call certified pre-owned. Certified pre-owned is not a universal metric. There's no standardization. The government didn't come in and say, hey, this is how we're all going to approach this, nor did the auto community weigh in and take this big conglomeration of expectations and say, this is how we do things. This is just basically, the dealerships came up with their own metric to self-police them to give you a sense of confidence. Carfax is a perfect example of this. Carfax really doesn't benefit anybody but the dealerships because, quite frankly, the detailed information included in a Carfax is typically only there if somebody has reported it. If a vehicle had been in an accident and never reported to an insurance company nor fixed in a reputable manner through kind of the insurance process, then the chances are that that will never actually show up on a Carfax. It's actually my understanding Carfax was created by a former car salesman in the process, and quite frankly, that's really who it benefits the most. I'm not saying that it's not a useful tool, but be aware that certified pre-owns or some type of fact check of the vehicles is not a universal language, but instead a self-made metric to realistically benefit the sellers in the process and give you a sense of confidence. Now, could it be authentic confidence? Maybe, but could it be a little fluffed up to make you believe the product is a little better than it should be? It could also be that. So be aware of those types of guarantees that might be a little bit of a false promise in the process as well. Now, I've talked a lot about online purchases, but the old adage of driving down the road and driving past a car lot and seeing something cool is still very much relevant by today's standards. I am absolutely going to trash a particular demographic of what I call buy here, pay here car lots. This is not meant to be a gross generalization of all independent car dealerships. So if the shoe doesn't fit, then don't wear it. But there are absolutely individuals out there who do not care about what is best for you, the consumer. They're just trying to get as much cash fast as possible. Typically, these car dealerships can almost have predatory practices that are geared towards people who are trying to establish or rebuild credit. Some of our most vulnerable population of automotive purchasers because of who knows what has happened in their life. Before I totally start to expose the secrets of these so-called predatory buy here, pay here car lots, we have to kind of understand, where do those vehicles come from? Our dealership network is a form of standardized and regulated vehicle sales. Those vehicles are manufactured at the OE, or the original equipment level. Those are your big manufacturers: Chevy, Ford, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, Kia, I don't care, you know, name them all. So those vehicles are then produced at a particular level of expectation. They are then sold through dealership networks. Now the consumer has it and you are going about your life. Eventually that vehicle no longer suits your needs, and therefore you either sell it, trade it in, send the lease back, you do whatever, you're done with it. As you trade that vehicle back in, or you relieve that vehicle to the next party, and let's say it's specifically back to a new vehicle dealer who also happens to sell used vehicles, they might not know what to do with that vehicle. They don't have your service history often, or if it is a modified vehicle, they might not actually know what they're looking at in the process. What they do know, specifically when it comes to Jeeps, is that as a generalization, people think Jeeps look cool. Well, it's because they do. When one of those utilitarian vehicles or cool vehicles gets traded into a car dealership, they might not exactly know what they're working with. Whether or not you actually buy that cool Jeep Wrangler from them is not the point of why they have that listed on their website or on their car lot. They just want to bait the hook. Let's say that that red Wrangler got traded into a Nissan car dealership. They have no business having that vehicle on their lot, but they've specifically put it on the lot because it helps draw people in. So now you show up because you think that red Wrangler is kind of cool. But because you're kind of an average consumer who's just looking at a multitude of vehicles, and whether it's that red Wrangler or some other vehicle, you're kind of on the fence. So you show up to drive that red Wrangler. Honestly, those salespeople don't actually care the quality, condition, and the value of that vehicle, because to them, they just need you to show up at the lot and take it for a ride. Now, if you're a little dissatisfied, they can go, hey, you know what? I'm glad you like this actual utilitarian vehicle, but why don't I show you the Nissan Pathfinder? And that for them is a easy bait and switch. Now, let's say that that red Wrangler never actually sells. It does benefit them to sell it, because if they can get appropriate margin, then obviously that's cash right back into their business and they move on with life. However, let's say that it doesn't actually sell within the metric that they have put forth. So 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8, 12, whatever their time frame is. Now that that vehicle hasn't sold, they send it to an automotive auction that you, the general consumer, can't access. Dealer-only auctions are meant to be a club of exclusionary practices where average citizens cannot attend without a dealer's license. So you're already excluded from this auction where all of the non-desirable vehicles are sent. Now, don't get me wrong, some of them may actually be a little desirable. And if you are a quality, good used car lot, again, don't wear a shoe that doesn't fit you. But there are going to be a number of vehicles that go across that auction block that have failing transmissions and leaking differentials and engines that the timing is off and that are on they're long in the tooth and they're on their last leg. Their lifespan is very short, and realistically, they're not a consumer-friendly vehicle. But because it has a little bit of life left in it, it heads off to the dealer auction. It no longer appears on that Nissan dealership's website, and nor is it on their lot anymore. Instead, it goes off to auction. It makes them a few dollars back into their inventory, and they go off into the sunset and continue to do Nissan things that are squarely in their wheelhouse. Now, it goes to the auction, and let's say this vehicle has bad ball joints and bad steering and the tires are chopped and the shocks are leaking. It doesn't matter because it looks cool from 20 feet away. And then we've all heard it's a 10 footer, a 20 footer, whatever it might be. It looks cool from a few feet away. And a lot will buy that vehicle. When I say a lot, I mean a buy here, pay here a lot. What's a buy here, pay here? Again, there's sort of that, we extend credit to anybody. Anybody can get a vehicle from us. And sometimes those practices become predatory. So they buy it and they put it on their lot. It doesn't mean it's the most qualified vehicle or the best cared for. These are the ones you really want to be careful of. You want to vet them very well, and these are the situations that just because this cool vehicle is on this independently owned car lot that just kind of popped up in town recently does not mean that it is then a good purchase for you. Really, the desire is that you're not buying a project unless you want to, and that if you are spending your hard-earned dollars, that you're getting the best bang for your buck. It's just kind of simple for me. And like I said, I've got a bunch of videos out there that are all geared around the same things. Looking for little tips and tricks, little context clues about how this vehicle has been cared for and ensuring that you get the best value for your dollar. Like I said, I'm actually passionate about this stuff, and just because I'm not regularly buying and selling doesn't mean that I can't be super passionate about it, and when I am out there intending to purchase, that I want to be as educated as possible. So we've talked about how the supply chain works for these vehicles, how you can insulate yourself as far as what dealerships or independents that you should or shouldn't be purchasing from. So how do you fully ensure that you're not buying someone else's headache or a project vehicle if you don't want to? Specifically when it comes to when you finally have the opportunity to view the vehicle. And that can be from a Vroom or a Carvana standpoint when it finally shows up to you. It could be when you are at some type of dealer lot. The biggest thing is it needs to be you, or you need to pay a professional service who assumes the liability of the inspection. And that is my biggest takeaway. I hear from people constantly who says, yeah, I found somebody in this local area who would go look at it for me. Or a buddy of mine's buddy lives down there and he went and looked at it and he said it was good to go. Just because those people say it's okay doesn't mean that it's the right fit for you. Additionally, paying a professional business or somebody else who assumes that liability, they can then communicate appropriately back to you the factual condition of the vehicle that they're looking at to ensure that it meets your needs. So now that you're actually looking at it yourself and you're not paying somebody else in the process, what are some of the things that you're looking for? Replacing tires and wheels is the cheapest and fastest ways to gain immediate gratification. Now, that means that as consumers, we love to see new, fresh rubber on a vehicle and fancy wheels. And with the explosion in overseas manufacturing with wheel technology specifically, it doesn't cost a whole lot for a dealership or a reseller to purchase some cheap, fancy wheels and wrap them in equally cheap rubber to make it pop when they're reselling this vehicle. So be conscientious and say, hey, the rubber's just been replaced. Why was that? Because rubber, specifically in the process, tires tell a story of how the components on the vehicle have been failing or been maintained in the process. So when we see a vehicle that comes in with 30, 40, 50,000 miles and the tires have funny wear or have never been rotated or the spare is brand new and yet we're on a second or third set of tires on the ground, that tells story through context clues about the condition and history of that vehicle. Now, again, a lot of this is going to be very Jeep specific, but you can take that information off into the automotive community as a whole. Additionally, you have to take some cardboard with you and lay down on the ground. If you're not going to take cardboard or a blanket and lay on the ground, then you have to try and take it to a trusted mechanic and put it up in the air and take a look at the underside. Oftentimes, interior and bodies of vehicles can look very nice, but where the expensive stuff is on the bottom of the vehicle. So you want to actually look at that. If you're just ever looking from 10 feet away, kind of everything looks good. It's kind of like 1 a.m. and the bar's closing. It's before they turn the lights on. Of course it looks like a good deal. You have to look at the important parts of the vehicle to ensure that the vehicle as a whole is all cared for similarly. Now, on the test drive, you should be trying out all the little buttons and gadgets, ensuring that they have appropriate functionality. Touch everything. Again, a dealership or an individual who's committed to selling, like we talked about, will be okay with this. It might be a little tedious, but the reality is you would rather know that these things are changed or failing or whatever they might be than in a few days after you've already purchased it and be like, oh, I didn't even ask about that, or oh, I didn't even think to look for that. Do it at the moment that you're finally hands are on the vehicle and feet are on the floorboards. Pop the hood. You might not know what you're looking at under there. It might look foreign to you, but pop the hood. Ask for help if you don't know how to. The objective is to look at everything in the process. If there's wires that are just randomly cut or running in the engine bay, or if there's corrosion on the battery or a big gap in the engine bay where it looks like something should be there, this is the time to ask questions. If you don't lift the hood and open the doors and touch the things in the process, there's a good chance that you might get hosed in the transaction, and we don't want that to happen. Finally, ask for service records. Like I mentioned, Carfax is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm not discrediting what Carfax brings to the automotive community, but it's not the end-all be-all. Ask for service records. If it is at a dealership, look in the glove compartment, look in the center console, see if there are any additional service records that may have made it through the service process and are just tucked away in the user manual or the little binders that oftentimes auto manufacturers give us. See what type of care and conditions that vehicle has been given prior to you owning it. I hope you found this video to be worthwhile and useful. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe and push bell button so you can get notified, because we're making content, and honestly a lot of people say it's pretty, half decent, and we want to keep making content for you. So do all those things so you get notified when we do make something for you. Otherwise, you can hit us up at sfj4x4.com or on our text only number 440-855-2100. And best of luck getting out there and buying your dream Jeep. If you do have any questions in the process, we offer a pre-consultation service that can be done remotely. And it's super cool, and hopefully it will save you a bunch of money. Hit us up on the text number and we'll get you hooked up with that. Until next time, Jeep on.